So we aren't going to do any movie spoilers, but we are going to talk about the prices associated with the spec books for this movie, and there will be a little bit of a spoiler regarding the post-credit scene at the very end of the video, but I will give you ample warning.
Bry's Comics.
Did we seriously do it again? Did we seriously see the exact same trend that we see over and over and over again in MCU-related spec, where we see all these people FOMO buy into a book and then have the book come crashing down? And when will this stop? Well, I'll tell you when this trend is going to stop. Never. It's never going to stop. It is here to stay because the systems that are in place to get us excited about these movies are irresistible. When you see that Jane Foster in that first trailer for the first time and she's looking all jacked and that she pulls up her arm like this and tink, here comes Mjolnir to her arm. Holy smokes, something in our brainstem starts going crazy. That part of your brain that talks about food and sex and sleep just roars up and says, you need to buy all the Mighty Thor comics you can find. But there's another part at play of your brain, and I'm not a science person, so don't quote me on this. I could have these brain mechanisms switched, but for me, I think it's the brain stem that does that impulsive stuff, and then it's the frontal cortex right here in the front of your brain that's like, oh, wait a minute, how many copies of that book were actually printed? What's the role of that character in the MCU? And then the frontal cortex says, all right, settle down, brainstem, settle down. We don't need to buy all the Mighty Thors at this point. And, you know, it's not just comic books. Last night, my wife made an irresistibly delicious blackberry pie with fresh blackberries, sweeter than I've ever tasted before from the garden. And she made this pie, and I had a big old piece right after dinner. And then I'm sitting there about 10 o'clock getting ready to go to bed, and here comes my brainstem. It goes, hey, dude, you left a half of a pie in the fridge. Finish it. And my frontal cortex kicks in. It's like, no, settle down, brainstem. It's not a good idea to eat half a pie before bed. So it happens all of the time. And if you don't have these frontal cortex checks by surrounding yourself with people in the community that have rational thought about comic book speculation, or you're already watching this channel, that's a good start. I'll throw another channel out there. It's Swagglehoss. If you're not already subscribed to Swagglehoss, I'm sure that you are. But if you subscribe to Swagglehoss Comics and you watch his videos, you will immediately start making better comic book purchasing choices. Now, I'm not here to say that Mighty Thor is not a collectible book or a good purchase. I'm not here to say that Gore the God Butcher isn't a highly collectible book. In fact, some people would argue, without getting into any spoilers, that those books very well could have a second life. Maybe not as powerful as the first FOMO life that those books had, but they could have a second life. To that point, now might be a good time to consider picking them up. But my only point is that you should time your buy-in. Because even if you're not a speculator, an investor, if you're just a collector, the thing is if you time your buy-in on the books that you actually collect, you might be able to double the amount of books in your collection, because these books often fluctuate like 50%. You know, it'll be $100 one day, $50 a couple months after that. And if it's something that you really want in your collection, you don't even care about the spec, you just love that Jane Foster cover, if you time your buy-in, you can get your collection for a fraction of the cost than if you had bad timing to buy in. So there's no condemnation, there's no talking down in this video at all. If you FOMO bought into Gore the God Butcher or the first cover appearance of Jane Foster, you are stuck with an absolutely awesome book, all right? That's the silver lining of this. For any, comic book spec, usually you get a cool collectible at the end of the day. So it's not the worst thing at the end of the day, but it's never too late to start putting those checks and balances in the front of your brain when that brainstem pops up and tells you to FOMO buy into something, to really stop and think about the timing of the purchase. So before we hop into the computer and take a look at the sales data, I want to remind you that we always have a free giveaway on this YouTube channel every single month. If you subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, and like this video, you're entered to win Invincible Iron Man number 7 and a 9.8, the first cameo appearance of Riri. Here's an awesome opportunity. Don't FOMO buy into it. Just get it for free, and all you have to do is subscribe, comment, and like this video. And if you head over to bryscomics.com and subscribe to the newsletter, winner. You're entered to win Doctor Doom #1, a 1 in 50 Adam Kubert variant. Another great opportunity to not FOMO buy into Doctor Doom Spec. Just get it for free, and all you have to do is say subscribe to the newsletter and follow me over on Whatnot for free giveaways every single show. Awesome content over on Whatnot, some fun new ways to shop for comics. Link in the description for $10 off towards your first purchase. And don't forget to follow me over on Instagram for awesome trade deals for grails, fresh content, and all kinds of fun stuff like live sales over on Instagram. Now let's jump into the computer and take a look at these books. All right, so here we are on gpanalysis.com looking at Thor, God of Thunder #2, the first appearance of Gore the God Butcher. And as you can see from this trending graph here, the blue line in the center is the average, the light blue is the outlier highs and lows. And here you can see this trend up, and you can see exactly where it's headed. The most recent sale was $249. This book peaked this year for $620. There was a low sale of $169. And if you look at eBay, there's a bunch of sales that haven't hit GPA yet. We have a 227, a 224, a 214. And if you look at what's currently listed, you know, people are definitely willing to accept less for it. A new listing here for $259, a bunch at auction. So we can all see where this book is headed. However, without giving any spoilers of the movie, this is a book I would keep my eye on because in addition to Gore, it's also the first appearance of the Necro Sword. So maybe a book to put on a watch list and kind of evaluate, when do you think the bottom for this book is going to be? I do think it could possibly have a second life. Here we have Thor #1, the first cover appearance of Jane Foster as Thor, the third cameo appearance or whatever you want to call it. Just this classic Jane Foster cover, the cover that everybody wants when going for Jane Foster as Thor. This is a perfect example of that. Here's a new listing for the 125 Pekeli variant for $140, which is or best offer, which is less than the cover A. This one is way more rare than cover A, and yet cover A demands a premium. A cover sells a comic. This is a perfect example of that. So here we have a new listing for $149. If we look at the graph, we could see exactly where this book is heading. Here you see the biggest spike of all for this one was that trailer that dropped with Jane for the first time in costume. That trailer really hit home. And this is an interesting point to consider, is it's not always the trailer anymore, but this one happened to be the peak excitement for it because the trailer hit so hard. So sometimes, you know, it's a casting, sometimes, you know, it's a key collector announcement, sometimes it's a news article on Bleeding Cool, whatever it could be. It varies a little bit with the book. The lesson here is, of course, timing your buy-in. I mean, looking at these highs and lows and recognizing when you are the peak excited about a comic book like this, when you see Jane Foster on screen for the first time and it strikes home and it really gets you riled up. Think about all the other people and how excited they're feeling and what's that going to do to comic book prices, and inevitably that excitement will wane and the prices will come down. Here you can see with the prices in June, you know, it did come down off those FOMO numbers even before the movie in June, steady $200 to $300 book. And now so far in July, just in one day, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sales, all well with under $200. So we see the direction that this book is going in. Now I want to look at Journey into Mystery #83. This is the first appearance of Thor, the Silver Age Grail. And I think it brings up some really interesting points. And there's actually only been 2 sales so far in July of this year. I would expect to see a handful more sales, but that is surprisingly low number of sales given the conditions of today's market. A lot of people are cashing out, but for whatever reason, there's not as many copies of Journey into Mystery 83 hitting the market right now. So we had a sale of a 5.0 for $19,200, which is a strong sale. I mean, it's right in line, actually higher than the sale in March. But this is where the nuance of comic book sales comes into play, and you have to dig a little bit deeper sometimes. And if you click on this actual sale, it was a 5.0 white pages copy. So it was an exceptional presenting 5.0, an exceptional
page quality for this book that definitely demands a premium. And even with those premiums, it was more than $1,000 less than the previous sale. So something to keep in mind, when looking at these sales, sometimes you have to dig a little deeper and look at the actual copy that was sold. Here, a 4.0 was sold. The only other copy that's sold so far in July. I'm filming this on July 12th, and this copy actually sold for $5,100 less than the previous sale, almost a 30% drop in price. So you can see where this book is heading as well. And I think that this is more just due to the market conditions. And I'd like to hear from you guys. Leave a note in the comments down below. Do you think that Silver Age grails, the holy grails like Journey into Mystery 83, Hulk #1, Avengers #1, all the Silver Age grails, do you think that they are immune from bad renditions of those characters on the silver screen? Or do you think that they are drastically affected by the renditions of these characters on the screen? I mean, we can all see that these spec books that are associated with these movies, like this Jane Foster book, are heavily, heavily influenced by the actual rendition on the screen. But what about the Silver Age grails? I mean, are they immune from it? I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below.
So the last book that I want to talk about, and this is the spoiler warning, all right? We're going to talk about the post-credit scene. So if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, click away. We're going to talk about it in 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. So in the post-credit scene for Thor, Love and Thunder, we get Zeus mending his wounds and talking to his son Hercules. And this is the only book associated with Thor that is still going up after the movie. I believe it's the only book. And the funny thing about it is that it's the same process that we talked about that caused these other books to spike and crash. We're just on the spike phase for the first appearance of Hercules. Now, this book, Journey into Mystery Annual #1, is a fantastic key. I mean, it's a #1 of a Journey into Mystery Annual. That's an important book, but it's not important to the level of today's prices. And mark my words, it will come back down way below where it is today eventually after this spec does not play out, because it's not going to play out. People aren't going to go crazy for Hercules. I mean, I've seen this. I'm willing to bet on it. I'm willing to bet that this spec will not be one of those that just continues to rise in value forever because people are just such incredible fans of Hercules. I could be wrong. It's just my opinion. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And, I do still think that there could be opportunity to make money on the Journey into Mystery Annual #1, because this video and this channel and my whole point here is to time your buy-in. I bet you there are a lot of people that are watching this video right now that made a lot of money on Thor #1, the first cover appearance of Jane Foster, on Gore the God Butcher. I bet a lot of people made a lot of money on this because they understand how to time their buy-in and time when they sell the actual book. So it's not to say don't spec on these books. It's just to say get smart about when you buy and when you sell. So back to the point on the importance of that key issue. I mean, that book has always been collectible, right? It's always been a collectible Silver Age key. A lot of collectors love to have Journey into Mystery Annual #1 in their collection. But when Russell Crowe was cast as Zeus and it came out in a podcast, I believe that book literally doubled overnight, or at least very close to it. And that's what I mean when I say that, like, the collectability of it is not to today's prices. Today's prices are based around that FOMO surrounding the character, not like just the collectability of the character that's been there ever since, So it's a very interesting thing to consider when looking at all of these books. I hope that you found this video helpful, entertaining at the very least. I appreciate you all for stopping by and sticking with me all the way to the end of the video, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.